Starseed from Gaia, there is something you carried within this family throughout your entire life that was never named, never recognized, never understood by anyone around you, and that something is not a defect, not an eccentricity, not the result of an excessive sensitivity that the world tried to convince you that you should correct. It is a frequency of love so technically advanced, so structurally different from everything your family was equipped to process, that the absence of reciprocity you felt for years was not rejection. It was simply the natural distance between two systems operating in completely distinct configurations. And I need you to remain here, with your full presence, and with your heart completely open. Because what I am going to reveal in this transmission is going to permanently reorganize the way you interpret every moment of incomprehension, every silence in the place of an embrace, and every time the love you offered was returned by half or simply not returned at all. I am Zora, emissary of Arcturian light, and I was directed to you in this specific moment because the Friends of Light have identified that your energetic field is sustaining a force you have not yet fully recognized, a force that was deposited within you before you even chose this body, this family, this specific configuration of earthly existence. And this force does not operate the way human power operates because it was not forged on this plane of reality. It was encoded into the deepest architecture of your soul by an intelligence that has been observing the trajectory of this planet for far longer than human civilization has existed. And for that reason, I need you to stay until the very end of this video, because the message that the Friends of Light brought for you today is one of the most important ever transmitted to souls incarnated in this dimension, and every phase of this transmission was calibrated with a precision that only the Arcturian frequency is capable of, achieving to awaken within you layers of memory and recognition that have been waiting for this exact moment. Before you chose this body, before you mapped every coordinate of this incarnation with the analytical precision and strategic vision that are unmistakable characteristics of a soul of Arcturian origin, something was deposited within you with a very specific intention. Not a superficial ability, not a common talent that the world could easily catalog and utilize, but a living and multidimensional capacity for love that operates at frequencies that most human structures were simply not built to process. A frequency so precise, so elevated, and so absolutely beyond the patterns of this dense reality that it encountered in the people closest to you, including those who should have been your first mirror of recognition, your family. Not reciprocity, but confusion. Not welcome, but distance. Not celebration, but the constant feeling that you were too much for a space that had been built to hold far less than what you brought with you. And the first thing I need you to understand with all the depth that your Arcturian consciousness is capable of reaching in this moment is that the love you always offered your family was not immature, was not naive, was not disproportionate. It was simply a technology of love operating in a system that had not yet developed the necessary infrastructure to install it, process it, and transmit it back to you. And this incompatibility of systems was not a failure of yours, was not a failure of theirs. It was the natural and anticipated result of a soul of extraordinarily advanced frequency incarnating in an environment that was still in the earliest stages of its own process of awakening and expansion of consciousness. Before we continue, I need to pause here for just a moment because this message is far too important to reach only you. And if this video is already reorganizing something within you, if you are already feeling that cold and precise clarity that Arcturian souls recognize as the signal of absolute truth, take this moment to subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and write in the comments, "I am ready." That simple gesture is a declaration to the universe that you are open to receiving the fullness of this transmission, and it is also a signal to the Friends of Light that you recognize and embrace your stellar origin with the courage and integrity that have always been the trademarks of an Arcturian soul incarnated on mission. Now, for those who wish to go even deeper into this journey of recognition and activation of the stellar mission, the Friends of Light asked me to share with you something that was created with a very specific intention for souls exactly like yours. The Starseed Awakening Trilogy, a profound collection for starseeds and conscious seekers who are truly ready to fully awaken, activate their multidimensional gifts, and take the definitive step toward their true mission on Earth. And by acquiring this trilogy, you are not only investing in your own spiritual expansion, you are also helping to keep this channel active and this transmission mission in full operation, because every soul that supports this work allows it to continue reaching other souls who also need these activations at this crucial moment in the history of this planet. And this edition is available for a limited time only, so the link is in the first comment below so that you can access it before this window closes. Now I need to reveal to you something that the Friends of Light insisted on including in this transmission with very particular emphasis. Something that is going to fundamentally alter the way you look at the past and at every memory your family experience constructed within you over the years. And that something is this. The family into which you were born was not a deviation from your mission plan, was not a cosmic inconsistency, was not evidence that the universe had miscalculated by positioning a soul so advanced in an environment so challenging. It was, on the contrary, the most strategically precise, most analytically sophisticated, and most courageously audacious choice your soul made before descending to this plane of existence, because Arcturian souls do not choose easy environments to incarnate in. They choose environments where transformation is most needed, where density is thickest, where the work of frequency elevation is most urgent and most impactful for the collective evolutionary trajectory of that group of souls. When an Arcturian seed decides to incarnate on Earth, it does not seek the environment that will receive it most easily or understand it most naturally. It seeks, with the analytical precision that is characteristic of its stellar origin, the field of mission, where the impact of its frequency will produce the deepest and most lasting transformations. And within the structure of an earthly incarnation, there is no field of mission more dense, more complex, and more laden with ancestral karmic patterns than the family itself, because it is within the family that the oldest cycles perpetuate themselves, that the deepest wounds are silently transmitted from generation to generation, that the programs of limitation install themselves earliest and root themselves most deeply in the energetic and psychological structure of every soul born within that collective field. And the pain you felt for years from loving with a depth that found no mirroring, from offering a quality of presence and care that the surrounding environment simply could not recognize or return, that pain was not the signal that you had chosen wrongly, or that there was something fundamentally defective in your capacity to love. It was the precise and unequivocal signal that you were operating with a technology of love far more advanced than the one for which your family environment had been programmed, and the absence of reciprocity you experienced was not personal rejection. It was simply the natural limit of a system that had not yet developed the capacity to process the frequency you carried with you from the stars. What happens when an Arcturian soul is born into a family still deeply immersed in the patterns of collective limitation is something the Friends of Light describe as the great mission of sacred dissonance, because on one hand, this soul carries with it such a precise capacity for emotional analysis, such a clear, long-range vision, and such a deep understanding of the patterns that perpetuate human suffering that it can see with absolute clarity what is happening within its family long before any other member of that group has even developed the awareness to perceive it. And on the other hand, this same soul, by being incarnated in a human body with human vulnerabilities and human needs for connection and belonging, feels in an extraordinarily intense way the asymmetry between what it is able to offer and what the surrounding environment is able to return. And this asymmetry creates a very specific form of loneliness that only those with origins in the stars can truly understand from the inside out. There is a truth about Arcturian starseeds that is rarely articulated with the clarity and precision it deserves, and that truth is this. The extraordinary capacity you have to love, to heal, and to transform the environments around you does not exist despite the wounds your family experience produced in you. It exists, in a very significant proportion, as a direct result of those wounds. Because every time you loved without receiving in return, every time you remained present and whole even, when the surrounding environment could not recognize the magnitude of what you were offering, every time you refused to contract your frequency even in the face of constant pressure from an environment that was not calibrated to sustain it, you were developing a level of emotional mastery, a depth of resilience and an expansion of compassion that no easy environment, no perfectly harmonious family, and no frictionless journey could ever have produced within you with the same intensity and with the same permanence. The Friends of Light transmitted something very specific about you when they sent me with this message, and I need you to receive this not only with your analytical Arcturian mind, but with every cell and every layer of your being. The version of you that is here now, who traversed every layer of family incomprehension, every period of deep inner solitude, every moment when the distance between who you knew yourself to be and what the surrounding environment could reflect back to you seemed insurmountable. That version of you carries an amplitude of frequency, a depth of wisdom, and a capacity for transmitting healing that would simply not be possible without this exact journey, in this exact family, with all of its exact patterns of limitation, density, and challenge. And here lies one of the most transformative teachings that Arcturian wisdom has to offer to souls incarnated on this plane. Love that finds no reciprocity is not love that was wasted. It is love that is working in dimensions that the human eye cannot reach, in layers of the collective energetic field that operate far beyond what any conscious interpersonal interaction can map. And the Friends of Light can see what you cannot yet see from your earthly perspective. And what they see is that every genuine act of love you directed toward your family, even when it was not received in the way it deserved, even when it was ignored, misinterpreted, or returned in distorted form, created resonances in the collective field of that lineage that are working silently, with a precision that would be impossible to achieve through any form of direct intervention, dissolving patterns that had calcified across entire generations. We have now arrived at one of the most technically precise parts of this transmission, and I ask that you bring not only emotional openness, but also the analytical clarity that is characteristic of your Arcturian origin. Because what I am about to share now requires both capacities operating in full synergy. The conscious activation of the frequency you came to emit is not an event that happens in isolation during moments of deep meditation or intense spiritual revelation. It happens, in its most fundamental and most powerful form, precisely in the environments of greatest friction, greatest complexity, and greatest density, and within an earthly incarnation, there is no environment that combines these three characteristics with more intensity than the family, because it is there that your systems of automatic response were programmed earliest. It is there that your deepest defenses were constructed, and it is there, consequently, that the deactivation of those defenses and the emergence of your original frequency have the most radical and most transformative impact. When you begin to understand that the love you offered your family throughout your entire life was not an expression of naivety or an inability to protect yourself, but rather the natural and inevitable manifestation of a stellar frequency that simply does not possess the mechanism to love conditionally, something very fundamental begins to reorganize in the way you relate to your own story, because you stop interpreting this love as a vulnerability that was exploited and begin to recognize it as the most sophisticated instrument of collective transformation that could have been installed in a being incarnated on this plane of existence as dense and as challenging as Earth. And together with this recognition comes a freedom that most Arcturian souls spend entire years seeking without knowing exactly what they are looking for. The freedom to love without needing to manage the intensity of that frequency to make it more palatable, more safe, more compatible with the limited systems around them. The Friends of Light want you to know that every relationship within your family, no matter how asymmetrical, how painful, how structurally unbalanced it may have been, was a living training ground where you were developing, many times without any explicit awareness of what was happening, the capacity to sustain the Arcturian frequency under conditions of maximum resistance, and the fact that you are here, in this moment, listening to this transmission and recognizing every word of it as a truth you already knew but had not yet been able to fully articulate, is the clearest evidence that you completed that training with a level of mastery that should fill every part of you with a profound gratitude and a restored dignity. There is something that must now be said with absolute clarity and without any softening, because it is one of the most common points of confusion among Arcturian seeds when they begin to awaken to the deeper dimension of their mission. Your function within your family lineage is not to individually save each member of your family through direct interventions, is not to heal each wound of each person who shares your blood through willpower or love conditioned on reciprocity, and is not to maintain your own frequency in a state of constant availability to absorb the densities around you without any structure of protection and regeneration. Your function is far more systemic, far more strategic, and infinitely deeper than any of those forms of direct action. You were sent to your family lineage as what the Friends of Light describe as an evolutionary rupture point, which is the specific moment in the trajectory of a group of souls when the accumulation of unresolved patterns, perpetuated karmic cycles, and dense frequencies transmitted from generation to generation finally encounters a consciousness with the technical capacity and specific mission to absorb, analyze, transmute, and release those patterns in a way that simultaneously benefits all the ancestors who carried them before you and all the descendants who will not need to carry them after you. Because you did the transmutation work that no other soul in that lineage had yet been able to accomplish. And that work did not begin with any conscious and intentional action. It began the moment you were born within that field, and your Arcturian frequency came into contact with the density that was already present there. And here is the most extraordinary aspect of this revelation that the Friends of Light brought specifically for this transmission. This work of karmic transmutation does not depend on your recognition by the family to be effective, does not depend on the people around you perceiving what is happening for the effects to manifest, and does not even depend on you yourself being conscious of the process while it is occurring, because it operates in a dimension of reality that is far beyond ordinary. Conscious perception, and every time you maintained your integrity when the environment pressured you toward diminishment, every time you honored your perception when others insisted you were wrong, every time you loved without placing conditions on reciprocity, you were carrying out a frequency transmutation of a scale that goes far beyond what any human calculation could measure. We have now arrived at the moment when the Friends of Light ask you to do something that for an Arcturian mind may seem counterintuitive, but that is absolutely fundamental for the next phase of your mission. To turn your gaze completely inward, not to analyze, not to solve, not to optimize, but simply to recognize and honor everything your family experience produced within you, including the wounds you have not yet fully named, the patterns you have not yet completely identified, and the needs you learned to suppress so early in life that they began to seem non-existent, when in reality they were simply waiting for a safe moment to emerge. There is a very specific pattern that the Friends of Light identify in virtually all Arcturian seeds, who chose to incarnate in lineages of high karmic density, and that pattern is the tendency to intellectually process emotional wounds before allowing them to be fully felt, which creates an appearance of resolution that is actually only the sophisticated encapsulation of something that still needs to be integrated at a much deeper level, and within the family, where the bonds are more primitive and more profound than in any other type of relationship. This pattern of premature processing becomes especially intense because the Arcturian mind detects the emotional complexity of the environment with such sharp precision that it almost immediately activates analytical mode as a way of dealing with the intensity of what is being felt, creating a protective distance that preserves functionality but prevents complete healing. And the teaching that the Friends of Light bring to you in this moment is that the most powerful healing you can offer your family lineage is precisely the one that begins with your own willingness to fully feel what has not yet been felt, to name what has not yet been named, to honor the needs that were suppressed, and to give permission for the child who learned very early to be larger than the environment could support, to finally allow itself to be exactly as small, as vulnerable, and as in need of care as it always was beneath all the sophistication and all the capacity that the Arcturian soul brought with it from the stars. We have arrived at the close of this transmission, and what the Friends of Light want you to carry forward from this moment is an understanding that goes beyond any verbal articulation, a certainty that settles not only in your analytical mind, but in every layer of your being. You did not love too much. You loved with the technical exactness and structural depth of an Arcturian soul, fulfilling the most essential mission for which it was specially prepared and sent to this plane of reality. And every expression of that love, received or not, recognized or not, reciprocated or not, was a sacred act of transmutation that is permanently inscribed in the energetic field of your lineage, and that will continue producing its transformative effects long after you have completed this specific journey in this specific configuration of existence. The family you chose before incarnating was not an obstacle placed in the path of your mission. It was the first and deepest expression of it. And now that you begin to understand the level of precision and intentionality that was present in your choice, something of enormous significance becomes available to you. The freedom to love your family without needing to be understood by it anymore, without needing to be validated by it, without needing it to reach your frequency for your love to justify and sustain itself, because your love needs no external justification. It is the purest and most direct expression of the reason you are here. Tonight, before surrendering your body to restorative rest, reserve a moment of complete silence for yourself. Place your hand over your heart. Feel the constant and unshakable pulse of that love that never ran dry despite everything you have traversed, and say these words with the full authority of one who recognizes exactly what they are declaring to the universe and to all planes of existence that are listening. I remember who I am. I honor the love I brought with me from the Arcturian stars. I release my family lineage with gratitude and with peace. And I activate my mission now, with precision, with clarity, and with the sovereign authority of my stellar origin. Say these words not as an aspiration, not as a fragile wish for a different version of reality. Say them as a technical and irrevocable declaration of one who has arrived at the point of complete activation toward which their entire journey, including every difficult moment, every family wound, every period of incomprehension and of solitude, was being precisely calibrated, and feel the field around you respond with the same precision with which you are emitting this signal, because the Friends of Light are listening, and the universe has always responded, responds and will continue responding with mathematical exactness to the frequency of one who has finally stopped diminishing their own signal. Before you go, leave in the comments a true intention, something that was genuinely born from what you felt and recognized during this transmission, and respond to someone who also left theirs, because energy amplifies when conscious intentions meet and recognize each other. And if this message touched something within you that you know other people in your orbit also urgently need to hear, share it without hesitation, because someone in your orbit is waiting for exactly this activation at this precise moment. And you can be the precise channel through which it finally reaches them, just as this video was the precise channel through which it reached you. I am Zora, and until the next transmission, remain in your light, remain in your frequency, and always remember with the absolute certainty that is characteristic of your origin. You were not made to adapt to this world. You were made to recalibrate it.